embraced Christianity as its own state religion. But as the years passed, Christianity itself adopted the use of torture, sending the imaginations of inventors of torture devices to new levels of darkness. The creation of tribunals to suppress opposing viewpoints has a long tradition. Clerics, kings, and even United States senators have employed state-sponsored courts or inquisitions to root out the heretics and non-believers. In the 15th century, it was the Spanish royals, Isabella and Ferdinand, who gave what became known as the Spanish Inquisition its place in history, as a harsh and deadly exercise of combined church and state power, dedicated to torturing those citizens who it named as heretics.
The state, or the secular, has always been involved in torture to some capacity. When we think about the Inquisition, we often associate it with the church, but the Inquisition was really the church and state working hand in hand, often for the purposes of the state more than the church.
Under the guise of establishing unity in her homeland, Queen Isabella asked for and received the Roman Catholic Pope's permission to purify her subjects. Spanish citizens of every rank and class had three choices: to accept Roman Catholicism as their religion, to leave Spain, or to risk torture at the hands of the Inquisition.
It only took 2 adult men to identify somebody as a heretic. At that point, they could be tried.
But before a trial could begin, a confession from the accused was required. That's where torture became necessary.
A typical torture session during the time of the Inquisition would often involve a number of different tools that would be present, and there might be a number of other people present participating. And it's very also important to note that there'd be other victims who were both in the process of being tortured or yet to be tortured.
The face of torture during the Inquisition was the Iron Maiden, manufactured in Germany. It was a man-sized container fitted on the inside with sharp metal spikes, a torture device that was well known and deeply feared, not only in Spain, but in all of Europe.
There was a great deal of craftsmanship, ingenuity, and knowledge of the human body to produce and design the Iron Maiden. As you open up, you'll notice that these spikes inside are placed in very strategic points intended to miss the vital organs.
This was done to ensure the victim would remain alive as long as possible, all the while experiencing tremendous pain and suffering. While the Iron Maiden may have been the face of the Inquisition, it was generally thought that the rack was its workhorse.
The rack is one of the most common forms of torture that we know, in terms that you can use many different methods in your process, in your torture creation. The first element is the crank at the end. Now here is where you would tie the person's feet. You would slowly add more tension to the point of elongating the body. They would be rolled across these spikes that would be much sharper, of course, at the time. And then at this end, the hands would be locked down and really leaving the victim exposed, and often, of course, naked. And at that point, any number of things can be done.
If the rack were to continue, there would be potentially ripping of tendons and ligaments and nerve damage that might be chronic and go on forever. People might feel the inability to use their hands or their lower extremities. They might feel numbness, constant pain in their fingertips or toes.
Ultimately, the rack was designed to slowly tear the victim's limbs out of their joints, the legs out of the hip joints, the arms out of the shoulder joints. The design of torture instruments changed as technology became more advanced. During the 1800s, a chair, completely forged of hardened metal, made its appearance. Simply called the interrogation chair, it soon became common throughout Europe.
The primary function would be to sit you down. You're sitting on these spikes, which are obviously not comfortable. This bar would lock down your chest. Your wrists would be held down as well, and then your legs would be clamped. Once sitting in the chair, chances are it's not going to be too long before you begin to talk. I would guess that certain people would begin to talk before they sat in the chair. I mean, it's very ominous. You wouldn't want to be here. The second major torture mechanism in the design of the chair, actually, is that it can be heated. All the metal spikes that you see conduct heat. Fire would be placed underneath the chair, bringing this intense, hot feeling.
Thumb screws and finger screws were another highly engineered torture device. Machine-tooled to mechanical precision, they worked like a pair of nutcrackers.
The way it would be used would be to place the fingers or knuckles inside the two bars, slowly increasing pressure until the proper amount of pain was necessary to get the information that you might want from the victim.
The thumb is the most important finger you have. So to actually crush the thumb makes you almost useless as a manual laborer. So it's got tremendous value in that way. It's also a very sensitive part of your body. The nerves are highly dense in the fingers, so that crushing nerves in the fingers causes significant pain.
A few torture devices seemed to go beyond ordinary tools of pain and suffering. Perhaps the most dreadful instrument of such debauchery was the pear.
What's amazing about this piece in particular is the amount of work that went into it. It's made of bronze, it's cast, and it took a bit of ingenuity and technology, especially for the time period. Like many torture instruments, they're multifunctional. In an oral capacity, it would be placed into the mouth and slowly opened for those who had uttered heretical comments. Now, for those who had committed homosexuality, it would be placed in the rectum. And again, slowly opened, increasing the pain. In the case of women, it'd be placed in the vagina, and again, slowly opened, and to the point where these points would puncture the uterus.